Hey friends, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber today, and we're here with another ruler of the month. This month's ruler of the month is the Perfect Rectangle Ruler. And yes, I've done half rectangle triangles here before, and I'll link to that video below, but this time we're using the Perfect Rectangle Ruler because not only does it do half rectangle triangles, but it also makes a really fun tilted block that we're gonna make using partial seams. You ready? Let's get started. The Creative Grids Perfect Rectangle Ruler is like most Creative Grids rulers. It has this QR code that you can scan to see a video on how the ruler works. It has that famous Creative Grids Grippy on it, which helps it from shifting when it's on your fabric. It has pictures of the blocks that you can make using this ruler and has markings in both black and white to help give you contrast. Now I have cut some strips of fabric to 6 inches wide and we are going to get started with those. The first thing that I want to do is square off my end here. So I'm just going to take this ruler and I'll line up along the top. I want to grab my spot on dot magnifying lens and put it on so that I can make sure that I am seeing that top line lined up with my fabric. And I've just squared off my end. And I just picked any line, it didn't matter which line I picked there. So I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees, that's just all the way around. And I can start cutting my perfect rectangles. I'm doing this with a solid fabric, so there isn't a right side or a wrong side to the fabric. I can line up this bottom edge with 6 inches, which is how big I've cut this fabric. And this 6-inch fabric is gonna give me 5.5-inch finished blocks. So whatever size you cut your fabric minus your 1/2 inch for your seam allowance. Now I've cut my line, but I've also cut this little notch away right here. And that's gonna help with lining up the pieces for sewing. So now I can turn this around. My spot on dot is sticking right in place. I recently cleaned off the adhesive so it's nice and clean and sticky. I'm gonna line up that 6-inch line, line up this edge right here, and I can cut my line. I'm gonna put this out of the way a little bit to cut my little notch off the top here. And that notch at the top is just for lining up while we're sewing. Now, if I was using print fabrics instead of solid fabrics, because I was cutting 2 layers at a time that were right sides together, which is pretty typical when you're using a print fabric, what I would end up with is 1 right facing half square triangle and 1 left facing half square triangle. So depending on what your pattern needs, this may be exactly right. You may want half of them going one direction and half going the other direction. However, if you want all of your triangles going the same direction, you won't be able to do that with a print fabric unless you cut just 1 layer of your fabric at a time. However, this is a solid fabric, so it's no problem for me to just flip these over and then I have 2 half rectangle triangles going the same direction, but that's not always going to be the case. So you want to make sure that you do a test cut before you cut all of your fabric to make sure that your half rectangle triangles are all going in the directions that you want them to. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Now all I have to do is I line these up, and because I cut that notch away right there, this bottom is just gonna line up perfectly right in there, and this top is gonna line up perfectly right up there, and that's exactly where my 1/4 inch seam allowance is. And I'm gonna be able to stitch and press and have perfect half rectangle triangles. Now I wanna show you some more that this ruler does. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut myself off a 6-inch square. And that was easy enough to do there. And now I'm going to, and where's my spot on dot? Cut myself another set of there we go. Okay, so now what I can do is I can make a square that tips inside another square. So I'm going to use a green square and some peach triangles, or half rectangle triangles. You're going to fold your square in half and just give yourself little creases right here, and then fold it in half the other direction. And then again, give yourself just creases on the sides, and that's just marking the center along all 4 sides. Now we're going to do the same here, except I want the center of this long side. There we go. So now what I can do is stitch lining up these long sides. And because these are solids, I'm totally fine. There we go. There we go. Because these are solids, I'm totally fine flipping them over in different directions, but if you were working with prints, you would want all of these triangles to be face up as you make this block. So this is a square that's tipped inside another square, and you can rotate this just a little bit to see a little easier what that finished block looks like. There you go. To sew this, you're going to want to do a partial seam. So what we do is we take these 2 pieces, put them together, and we're going to sew from just past the middle here, and then we press this part. Then we're going to be able to cut off this dog ear, and we're going to line up our 2 center folds. We can sew this entire seam, that, then cut off my end, sew that entire seam, cut off the end, sew this entire seam, and then I'll be able to finish off this seam to be able to sew this all together. And that way I have my tipping block all put together, and this seam I'm basically just sewing this first half, then going all the way around, and then sewing the second half of that seam. And that's called a partial seam. It's super simple to do. And that gets me my tipping block with using this the half rectangle ruler, the perfect rectangle ruler, which makes perfect half rectangle triangles, and also makes this fun kind of tipped over block. Okay, did this ruler blow your mind or what? If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. As always, the comment section is for you, so make sure that if you have any questions or comments, you type those in, because I'll be looking for them so I can get you answers. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, hit subscribe and that bell so you know every time I've got a new video for you. And friends, I have lots more coming up. I'm gonna see you right here real soon. Bye for now.